Big Podcast.
It's Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. David Hooper with you. This episode, this is the audio version of Big Podcast Insider, my weekly newsletter. You can get that free. It's at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Quick update on the new book. It is being released in 2 weeks. Pre-order it now. It's only 99 cents. It is the #1 new release for podcasting and webcasting. It's on Amazon, linked in the episode notes. But also, if you just go to Amazon, search 101 podcast episode templates, you're going to want this. I'm finishing out the voiceover now. That's going out to Audible, so there is an audio version. But what you really want is this thing in writing. 101, actually 102, but who's counting? Podcast episode templates. I've tested these things, developed them over the last several years, and they work. They will give you new ideas to engage your audience, get people excited about your podcast, get people talking, and also make money with your podcast. On this episode, I'm talking about advertising. Speaking of making money, let's go. No podcast is too small to make money with advertising. You may have heard this. These advertising agencies that want to hook you up with general advertising, I'm going to call it. I don't know, maybe a drink or some kind of software, food in a box, mattress in a box, that kind of thing. People will tell you, you got to have 10,000 downloads per episode. You do not. You do not. And if you want to make money via podcasting, which is a very common plan for a lot of podcasters, you're going to want to listen up, especially if you don't have 10,000 listeners. But even if you do, let's honor those listeners. They are likely very specialized people. People who listen to this podcast, for example, you're podcasters. You are a very specific audience. So the people that I have come to me that want to advertise here, they're looking for you. I'm not going to advertise sugar water here for you, a mattress in a box. Although maybe you could use a good night's sleep. This is what I tell people when they approach me with some kind of crazy deal. Like, oh man, we got all sorts of inventory. We want to advertise on your podcast. All right. One, they don't want to pay what I can get for a specialized advertiser. They say, well, we can get it on Facebook for blank. We can go to Pandora and get it for blank. Well, go to Pandora then. Go to Facebook. Go to Google Ads, whatever. If you want a specialized audience, if you want somebody reading your ad that has a connection to that specialized audience, that's what I do. That is what you do. We have specialized audiences, and you do not need as many listeners as you think before you are a good match for advertisers. Sometimes you got to sell them a little bit, explain things to them, because they're used to doing things like these crazy ad buys, the cumes and all this, whatever. They throw these statistics out, big numbers. Well, we're reaching this people, this kind of demographic, and this percent of the population. No. That's not what we do in podcasting, not the smart podcasters. You can do it. I remember talking to a guy talking about 25 CPM. If you're not familiar with the term, $25 for every 1,000 downloads. I said, that's not that much money. He goes, what, 25? Because I'm talking about 5. 5 CPM. And he was going to go for it. I said, dude, what are we going to do? We're going to end up with like, I don't know, $100 or something. I mean, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to put your audience through that. So let's talk about those audiences. People come to you, they want specific information. I've got a list of 10 niches that are making money right now, 2022. These things change. I mean, there's some big ones that are always going to make you money. Let's say weight loss, fitness, health. Making money is always a thing. But very specific niches within these big markets, they're constantly changing. I mentioned this on the last episode, that sometimes there's a business that's going gangbusters. So electric typewriters back in the 70s. Every office had one. And not only was IBM selling them, but they got repair guys. They've got the ball that you got to replace. They've got ink. They've got a whole support system for them. That's not a thing anymore. You may have a typewriter in a modern day office, but it is a specialty machine. It is not something that your secretary or administrative assistants, as we call them now, it's not something that you see on every person's desk that is doing that kind of job. For one, because a lot of executives, they're typing their own stuff up now. We have tools to do that. We can scan things. We can dictate things. We are working in a different way. That's why you want to keep on top of this stuff. Here's what I've found. When it comes to podcasting, as I mentioned, there are a lot of moving parts, but it comes down to these two things. One is you, and the second is your topic. At that point, that's when the marketing comes in. Got information on that I'm going to get into in just a minute here. But before you dive into that, I want you to go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com and look at these 10 podcast topics and also the multiple niches within those topics. These are the things that are making money now. Speaking of making money, if you see something that you like, if you're interested in bringing in money in a different way, not just advertising, I would reach out to existing blogs within these topics. These guys are making money. They've got a built-in audience. A lot of them not good on the mic. They're better at writing than talking. You can come in, you can repurpose those articles in a podcast. You can bring a blog owner, writer, proprietor, whoever's working on the blog into a podcast that you are doing. You can partner up with those people. It is an instant audience. There's a great opportunity for cross promotion. So if you're looking to get to those bigger numbers, 10,000 downloads per episode or whatever, because you want to sell Coca-Cola, mattress in a box, meal in a box, that's an easy way to do it. Anyway, 10 niches that make you money in 2022. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. That's got the list. That's got more information. You can modify what you're doing sometimes to work within those niches. If you got questions about that, reach out to me. Twitter is the best way to do it, at David Hooper. Once you get yourself going, this is a great thing about having an instant audience. Small hinges, big doors. You got a lot of people that are excited about a topic, and you're giving them a new way to consume information about that topic. They're going to start talking about it. They're going to do the marketing for you. How to bring word of mouth to your marketing. Let me give you some word of mouth content ideas, though. That's really what this is about. One, feature relevant user-generated content, meaning for blogs, for example, you let somebody do a guest blog or do a roundup post. You've seen those. You can do those for your podcast. Voice form, pod inbox, those solutions are a great way for you to take user-generated content. Maybe it's just a question. The sky's the limit on this, but somebody go to your pod inbox, somebody go to your voice form. They either ask a question or maybe they reply to something that you said, and you can bounce off of that. It brings your audience into the conversation, and it gives you even more content, either that specific recording or something that you can bounce off of. It is a real-time conversation. You listen to talk radio, you got somebody to call in. Hey, man, Billy from Alabama here, first-time caller, long-time listener. Got a question about blank. And they get into a debate. Most podcasters aren't doing that because we're not broadcasting live. You could stream it, you could record it, put it out as a podcast. But most of our podcasts, they are time-shifted, recorded, edited, then released. Something like Pod Inbox or Voice Form, that enables you to get that real-time conversation in, even if people can't hear it live. It's live to the people who are listening. So do not neglect that. It also builds stories around your listeners. You can build stories around listener reviews of your stuff. If you want to build a business, you can build stories around the listeners themselves. Maybe you've got that fitness podcast, that money-making podcast. Somebody's lost weight based on your advice. Bring that listener in. Bring those listener recordings in. Tell the story through that listener. That's super powerful. That listener's made money off your advice, had a better life off of your advice. Bring those listeners in. Bring those stories in. That's going to make you look like an expert. Again, they're supplying the content. It gives you something to bounce off of. But you can see how this is a huge synergy here. It's a holarchy. You talk about something, somebody does that something, somebody experiences that something, they come back with a story about that something, then the whole thing starts over again. And this is the reason why I bring this up, the word of mouth element of it. You put somebody on your podcast, what are they going to do? They're going to share it. You and I take it for granted that we're getting behind a microphone a lot. We don't think it's a big deal. Okay, I'm on a podcast today. All right. But for some people, that's a huge deal. Podcasters, you see it a lot with a live speaking engagement. Oh, I'm going to speak. I'm going to be presenting. They don't say they're going to speak. They say, I'm going to be presenting at this conference. They make it a big deal. And what do? They tell everybody about it. I'll be presenting. Yes, I'm not just attending. I'm presenting. That's how most people are. I didn't just listen to this podcast. I was on it. You can hear me. The podcaster edited me and made me sound so good. I'm going to share it. That's the value of editing. Of course, they're not going to say that, but they're thinking about it. That guy made me sound so good. Maybe they don't even know that you edited them, but it's another reason for you to edit. Anyway, going on tangents here. The point is, bring your listeners in, use that content to generate other content, and also use that content to give them something that is worth sharing to them. They are more likely to share it if they are involved. Do everything that you can to get your audience involved with your content. Let's continue the thread about promotion. How to promote your podcast, 21 new strategies. If you want to innovate with your podcast marketing, you need to look outside podcasting. That is one of the reasons that I'll often talk in this newsletter, Big Podcast Insider, at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, and also the audio versions of that newsletter. It's one of the reasons that I often talk about blogs. Blogs Same kind of thing as podcasting. We are making content, we are putting it online, we are distributing it digitally, often via a feed. Only difference, you are hearing a podcast and you are reading a blog. So we can learn a lot about podcasting through what bloggers are doing. Bloggers have been around longer than podcasters. And because podcasting and YouTube and other content has come on since blogging was really popular, bloggers have had to get very innovative to keep and grow their audiences. Well, let's learn from that innovation. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is one of the reasons that I talk about blogging so much on this podcast about podcasting. These are 21 promotion strategies for bloggers, but they also work for podcasts. They'll give you some great ideas on how you can get more attention and also listeners for your podcast. They are linked, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. One of the reasons that you don't see bloggers do podcasts is that they are not good on the mic. You may feel as a podcaster, you're not good on the mic. This book I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm recording and editing the audiobook version of it. An audiobook, in theory, we're looking for that perfect performance. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm listening to myself as I'm reading. I'm listening to myself as I'm playing back and editing, because I edit my own stuff. This is a way for you to get good as a podcaster. You've got to edit your own stuff. But you can also get hypercritical about yourself. And this is the reason that a lot of people, because we are not used to being on this mic, because we are not used to hearing ourselves and editing ourselves, it is the reason a lot of people do not stick it out with podcasting. I've got a video. It is about how to improve articulation and diction. Articulation is a core element of voice work, and being able to communicate clearly is paramount for podcast hosts. When you sound good, you've got good quality audio, talked about this before, people take you seriously. If you got poor quality audio, if you're slurring words together, you don't have vocal variety or energy, you can have the best content in the world and people aren't going to pay attention to it. You got to get this together. Fortunately, it is fun. I've got a video. It's something you can practice 10 or 15 minutes a day. That's all it takes. Articulation exercises, tongue twisters. She sells seashells by the seashore. Saying it a little weird, right? Think about saying that 5 times normally. She sells seashells by the seashore. Seashells, seashells. Yeah, I can't even do it. Can't even do it. It's tough, man. You got to work on that stuff. You got to work on it every day. And this is my suggestion for you on how to do that. I got what I call the Sausage Factory podcast. You've heard me talk about it on my podcast, and I've been doing it for a few years. I'm reading every day. I'm improvising. I'm thinking on my feet. And I've got this linked. If you don't know about this strategy, it's at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Go there. I've got it linked. You will see exactly how I do those things every day. It's easy. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. One of the things that I'm adding to this is these articulation exercises, even simple tongue twisters, just to warm my mouth up. It makes recording an audiobook so easy. You got to go seashells by the seashore. What? She sells seashells by the seashore. All right. Start working on that. Getting used to those sounds. I've got tongue twisters for every letter of the alphabet. You go through those a few times. When you pull up your script, whatever you're reading, or you get behind your mic just to do your podcast, it makes it seem so much easier. It's like runners who wear weights on their ankles, then they take them off, they start running the competitive race. Woo, my legs are so much lighter. That's what's going to happen to you when you do these exercises. It's fun. It's fun, if nothing else, to watch the guy. So give it a chance. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Do it if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. But do give it a shot. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Finally, I want to talk about how to sell ads. This is a great way to do it. Jeff Sanders, he's got a podcast called 5 a.m. Miracle. If you've ever heard it, you'll see that Jeff does a great job of selling advertising. How does he do it? One of the ways that he does it is that he's been consistent. Advertisers know that he's going to show up every Monday with a new episode of this. Their advertisements are going to be in there. They're going to be host read. Jeff's got a hardcore audience of people that are into time management strategies. They want to be more productive. They want to sleep better, get more work done, live better. If you're into that, he's got your podcast. But even with that, sometimes it is hard to explain to advertisers exactly what you do. This is a piece of software. It is on the web and it is free. You input your RSS feed. It will show you a word cloud of your podcast, what it is that you are talking about. It will show you how consistent you are with your podcast. It will show you how long your episodes are. It puts everything up on a nice single page that you can print out, export as a PDF, give to potential sponsors, and say, this is what you get when you work with me. You don't just get me. You don't just get this connection with the audience that I've got. You don't just get these download numbers. You get this consistency. You get these topics. You get this longevity. You get this history. That helps when you're dealing with companies that have advertising money. People want something they can give to their bosses. Say, hey, we got this guy. Make him look smart. Give him a PDF. It's super easy. It's free. I've got this thing linked. It's newsletter.bigpodcast.com. That's it for me. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, that's a different URL. It's bigpodcast.com/subscribe. You will get these episodes every week. You'll get additional episodes about how to grow your audience, get more people to your podcast, make people care about your podcast, spread your message more effectively, and make money with your podcast. It's bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Super easy. I got 3 buttons. You pick one. Android phone, I got a button for you. iPhone, got a button for you. If you want an RSS feed, got a button for you. Bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Go there now, subscribe before you forget, and I will see you on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.